Hello, today we're going to work on a value scale. When we work with the concept of value, we're dealing with the lightness or darkness of a surface. When you look at the pencils that you have, sometimes you'll see an H on there. So an H represents hard graphite. So the bigger the number the H, the harder the graphite. Now when you look at some pencils that have a B on there, that means soft. So the bigger the number the B, the more soft it is. So the harder it is, the lighter your values will be. The softer it is, the darker your values will be. So in this video, you're going to see me working with H and B pencils and also just a regular everyday pencil. Use what you have and try to create a 5-step value scale. All right, today we are going to work on a value scale. We're just going to start off doing a 5-step value scale. So I'm going to put a mark at 0 and I'm going to put a mark at 5. I'm going to just go down the line, put a mark at 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and draw a line. Then I'm just going to trace around my ruler. And I'm going to go ahead and complete that. I want to do this very lightly. I'm going to draw lines that divide up my space here. And then from there I'm going to try to divide that pretty close to in half. Just put a mark there, and I'll eyeball that. That'll help me divide up my space. Okay, so when we're dealing with the idea of value, what we're doing is we're working with the lightness and darkness of a surface. Okay, so the goal is that what we're going to do is we're going to draw an almost white and an almost black. Okay, and then we're going to do about 20% change of values. First thing I'm going to teach you is this. I'm going to use you might not be able to see an HB pencil. That being said, I'm going to do this kind of really soft hold, and I'm going to barely touch the surface. Now I'm going to go over this over and over until I get a nice even coat. I'm not putting any pressure down when I do this, so I want to get a super light gray. Now I do work fast, and sometimes it's hard to pay attention to what I'm doing, so when you see this, I'm not putting any pressure down. I go over and over it again until I get, like I said, an almost white. So very, very, very light gray. I'm going to go ahead and establish the other end. Now what I did is I used an HB pencil. So the H means it's a very hard graphite. So it's not going to break up a lot. Now if you have a pencil set and you use something like a 6B, you're going to notice something completely different happens. Now when I use this 6B, well, I'm putting a very light pressure down, and right away it got extremely dark. Well, B in the pencil world, in the graphite world, means soft. So the bigger the number, the B, the darker it will be. So again, in shading, when you're trying to shade something, you want to layer. So if your pencil is a little bit rounded, so if you could kind of go over it, and if it's a little bit rounded versus pointy, that's actually better for shading because you're not going to damage your paper. So if you press too hard, what you're going to end up doing is you're going to put a scratch into the surface of the paper. Now that paper has what is known as tooth, which is the texture of the paper. So you end up damaging that. So I'm going to write 6B there. So that's what I did with that particular one. Now, for this one, I'm going to use a 2B. I'm going to just go over and over this until I get about 20% change. Now when you do a value scale, I recommend not smearing with your fingers. That's a big no-no, because what will happen with that is you'll actually get the oils of your hands into the paper. So your paper is very absorbent. All right, so I'm going to just stop there. I'm going to go ahead and switch over to like a 3, maybe 4B. Okay, so I'm going to just use this. And then I'm going to just get this. I'm going to go back and forth. Again, I find that it's easier. If you hold it too straight up and down, you're going to damage your paper and you're going to cause some issues. So you do want your graphite to be a little bit rounded, and your goal with the value scale is to get a nice flat value. Now if you're a more advanced person, I would definitely try to get up to 7 instead of 5 values. But again, that's going to be determined by what you have to work with. All right. I like to do this where there's no lines in between, so I could just see a nice flat shape button up to the previous shape. Okay. Now my paper has a bit of a tooth. If you're doing this on something like copy paper, that might be a little challenging for you. All right, for this one I'm going to go ahead and use a 5B. So as a reminder, a B pencil is going to be softer. But one of the things that what I always tell people is when you first start driving, right, you have a tendency to push down on the gas really hard, and that you peel out, you could get into an accident, cause all sorts of problems, right? So in the drawing world, it's really, especially when you get into shading, it's very difficult to erase out stuff. So I always recommend just kind of easing into your values, not pushing it too dark or, you know, because you could always make something darker, but if you overly do it, we're going to have an issue. You're going to have an issue, and then you got to erase it out. It gets all over the place. So that would be one of my takeaways from this for you. Now, one of the things I recommend, now you could go back in with like a 2B pencil, and you could kind of push the graphite around. I'm going to smear this 6B graphite around. Then I'm going to just kind of smear this. Now they have these blending stumps, these like paper blending stumps called tortillions. They look like little paper pencils. Sometimes those work really well. All right, so as your goal is to try to get that almost like, here's your kind of in-between gray, there's your almost black, and then there's a in-between gray, light gray, and then an in-between dark gray. So I think this is a really good starting point. So here's what I'm going to try to do now. I'm just going to use just a regular everyday pencil. Now when I do this, I'm going to see if I could get very similar results. So if you're at home and you have nothing but just a regular pencil, let's see what we could do here. So I'm going to try to match this up as well. A little burnishing or polishing technique is a good thing. So if you polish, right? Well, since I've already established the values, I'm able to match this up. Again, I'm holding my pencil sideways, so I'm getting more of the graphite hitting the surface versus trying to, you know, press hard and then I'm going to damage my paper. So just always keep that in mind. So it might be good to kind of round your pencil tip, because if you do want to hold your pencil a little bit more vertical, that actually might be a good thing. So a couple things that you could also do is go in multiple directions. You could polish like I'm doing right now, do a little bit of a, in the art world, we usually say burnishing, right? So, all right, so this is working out pretty well. I am going to have to press hard here because your regular pencil is going to be a harder graphite versus that 6B. All right, so there you go. You're going to have 5 different values when you do this. your goal, your goal is to try to get an almost light. I got that probably a little bit too dark. Light gray, a gray, a dark gray, and an almost black. Give it a try. Enjoy shading. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed the value scale drawing video. Stay tuned for my next video. As always, draw something. Hey, shade something now. Give it away. Put a smile on somebody's face and be a good person. Have a great day.